If your marketing message is, I buy houses, I pay cash, I close quickly, then flip and do it.
We used a word a couple minutes ago called intent.
And capacity, yes.
Intent and capacity.
Yes.
Could you expand on that intent and capacity, what that would mean to somebody?
Well, let me step back one thing before we get there, okay? If your marketing message is, I buy houses, I pay cash, I close quickly, then flip and do it. Buy the house, pay cash, and close. Okay? Because if your marketing message is, I buy houses, I pay cash, I close quickly, and every deal you do is an assignment, well, you're a fraud.
Right.
Okay? You're engaged in a fraudulent activity on a regular basis, and look out, Uncle Rico may come visit. Okay? I want to scare people, but I want them to realize there's a legitimate, easy way to do this. So you have to have the intent and capacity. Does that mean you have to perform on every deal? No. When you put a property under contract, it's like, if it passes my inspection criteria, I've got the money and I can close. Now, well, wait a second, Jeff. I don't have the money in my own bank account. Great. Do you have a private lender or two lined up? How about a hard money source? How about dough for a day? Do you have a couple of them lined up that have said, listen, you get something that fits this criteria, we'll fund it. Okay, then you now have capacity to perform.
So it sounds to me like it's not even a problem with just the Division of Real Estate. It could be Department of Commerce with misleading advertising at that point that could land you in hot water.
In Ohio, the Division of Real Estate is under the Department of Commerce.
Oh.
Okay, and so I've had the opportunity to work with the excellent, fine people down there, the State of Ohio Division of Real Estate, and they've been leading the charge across the United States of America. Some of the people there in Columbus have been influencing policy across the nation for the last several years, particularly when it comes to wholesaling and how it's viewed and how it's regulated and how it's interpreted. And I've had conversations with them where they're like, wholesaling in their eyes is assignments and it bothers them. But when you buy it, take title, and then resell, they're like, well, you're a flipper. That's fine.
Gotcha. Now, we also mentioned in there disclosure and transparency. So it used to be, I've been doing this since the mid-90s, and it used to be that if you were signing a contract, you just had to pick one person that knew how much you were making on your assignment. Which side of the HUD you want to be on your assignment, you have to pick one or the other. Now it seems that everybody has to know. What have you seen?
Most of the time I like if the buyer and the seller see both sides of the HUDs, but even on retail transactions, sometimes that doesn't happen. Most realtors will ask that both parties sign off so they can see exactly that the fees are split the correct way. But the buyer or the seller is not entitled to see the other side other than to make sure that it's done right. And since the title company is an unbiased third party, you can sort of assume that they're doing things the way that they're supposed to.
Now, we've talked a lot about assignments of contract here. And the second question that always pops up, at least in the state, and I deal primarily in the state of Ohio probably 99% of the time, is people ask me about double closes. Double closes. And so you start out, tell me, what is a double close?
You're buying the property and then you're reselling it. It might be a minute later, it might be a day later, it might be 2 days later. But the thing that usually gets most people are they're trying to use the money that they're making from the second closing to finance the first one, and you cannot do that.
That is what is called a dry first closing, and that's a no-no. The double closings are perfectly legit, but they have to be independent, standalone transactions, each one standing on its own merits. They can be 2 minutes apart, they can be 2 hours apart, 2 days apart, but they got to be able to stand alone. So taking the money from the C buyer and bringing it over into the A to B transaction is a no-no.
It's a no-no legally or ethically or both?
It is a no-no. Well, I'm going to speak to it my side, and then Angela's going to fill this in because I won't hit it all. It's a no-no as to the underwriting guidelines issued by all the title insurance carriers. It's a no-no as it relates to your not being candid with the parties in the transaction. So you've got a fraudulent misrepresentation there as well. Those are the two things I've got. I'm sure you can fill in more.
I would say years and years ago, a lot of times the C buyer might even sign off allowing you to do that if they know they're doing that. And now you've gotten rid of the transparency, but again, you're going above and beyond where the underwriters are saying we don't want to see that. On top of that, if the C buyer knows that you're doing that, do an assignment. There's no reason to maybe do the double close.
Exactly. Well said.